Hello, Tamara Green here for A Course in Miracles lesson number 72. All right, we're going to kind of open up this area and the spine. So the elbows are shoulder distance or shoulder height, and then we move the fists toward the front, and we keep the face and hips forward, and we twist everything else. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 more. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Very good. Okay, A Course in Miracles, lesson number 72, holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. While we have recognized that the ego's plan for salvation is the opposite of God's, we have not yet emphasized that it is an active attack on his plan and a deliberate attempt to destroy it. In the attack, God is assigned the attributes which are actually associated with the ego, while the ego appears to take on the attributes of God. The ego's fundamental wish is to replace God. In fact, the ego is the physical embodiment of that wish, for it is that wish that seems to surround the mind with a body, keeping it separate and alone, and unable to reach other minds except through the body that was made to imprison it. The limit on communication cannot be the best means to expand communication, yet the ego would have you believe that it is. Although the attempt to keep the limitations that a body would impose is obvious here, it is perhaps not so apparent by holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation, on why holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. But let us consider the kinds of things you are apt to hold grievances for. Are they not always associated with something a body does? A person says something you do not like. He does something that displeases you. He betrays his hostile thoughts in his behavior. You are not dealing here with what the person is. On the contrary, you are exclusively concerned with what he does in a body. You are doing more than failing to help in freeing him from the body's limitations. You are actively trying to hold him to it by confusing it with him and judging them as one. Herein is God attacked, for his son is only a body, so must he be as well. A creator wholly unlike his creation is inconceivable. If God is a body, what must his plan for salvation be? What could it be but death? In trying to prevent himself as the author of life and not of death, he is a liar and a deceiver, full of false promises and offering illusions in place of truth. The body's apparent reality makes this view of God quite convincing. In fact, if the body were real, it would be difficult indeed to escape this conclusion. And every grievance that you hold insists that the body is real. It overlooks entirely what your brother is. It reinforces your belief that he is a body and condemns him for it. And it asserts that his salvation must be death, projecting this attack onto God and holding him responsible for it. To this carefully prepared arena, where angry animals seek for prey and mercy cannot enter, the ego comes to save you. God made you a body. Very well. Let us accept this and be glad. As a body, do not let yourself be deprived of what the body offers. Take the little you can get. God gave you nothing. The body is your only savior. It is the death of God and your salvation. This is the universal belief of the world you see. Some hate the body and try to hurt and humiliate it. Others love the body and try to glorify and exalt it. But while the body stands at the center of your concept of yourself, you are attacking God's plan for salvation and holding your grievances against Him and His creation, that you may not hear the voice of truth and welcome it as friend. Your chosen Savior takes His place instead. It is your friend. He is your enemy. We will try today to stop these senseless attacks on salvation. We will try to welcome it instead. Your upside-down perception has been ruinous to your peace of mind. You have seen yourself in a body and the truth outside you, locked away from your awareness by the body's limitations. Now we are going to try to see this differently. The light of truth is in us, where it is placed by God. It is the body that is outside us and is not our concern. To be without a body is to be in our natural state. To recognize the light of truth in us is to recognize ourselves as we are. To see ourselves as separate from the body is to end the attack on God's plan for salvation and to accept it instead. And wherever His plan is accepted, it is accomplished already. Our goal in the longer practice periods today is to become aware that God's plan for salvation has already been accomplished in us. To achieve this goal, we must replace attack with acceptance. As long as we attack it, we cannot understand what God's plan for us is. We are therefore attacking what we do not recognize. Now we are going to try to lay judgment aside and ask what God's plan for us is. What is salvation, Father? I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. Then we will wait in quiet for His answer. We have attacked God's plan for salvation without waiting to hear what it is. We have shouted our grievances so loudly that we have not listened to His voice. We have used our grievances to close our eyes and stop our ears. Now we would see and hear and learn. What is salvation, Father? Ask and you will be answered. Seek and you will find. We are no longer asking the ego what salvation is and where to find it. We are asking it of truth. Be certain then that the answer will be true because of whom you ask. Whenever you feel your confidence wane and your hope of success flicker and go out, repeat your question and your request, remembering that you are asking of the infinite creator of infinity, who created you like Himself. What is salvation, Father? I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. He will answer, be determined to hear. 1 or perhaps 2 shorter practice periods, an hour, will be enough for today, since they will be somewhat longer than usual. These exercises should begin with this. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Let me accept it instead. What is salvation, Father? Then wait a minute or so in silence, preferably with your eyes closed, and listen for His answer. So 72 is holding grievances. It's an attack on God's plan for salvation. All right, I want to talk more here on the ego. So, when we are young, many neuroscientists are saying that really, or behavioral scientists are saying before the age of 5, about 95% of what we believe and what we hold as truth forms by the time we are about 5 years old. And much of that is fear-based. Okay, so let me explain that. Let me go a little bit deeper so you have an understanding. So we are born as this beautiful, innocent soul, right? Coming into a body which feels really strange. We're a spirit, we're a light, but we come into a body that feels really weird and strange. But we don't have the part of our brain developed yet that is discerning. That comes later in life. So everything that we experience, we kind of just take in as okay, this is truth. We just soak it up like a sponge. But as the delicate, innocent, loving beings that we are when we're so young, not only are we not questioning it, but we just really soak it up and just take it on as truth. So we've got parents who, God bless them, they're probably doing the best that they can, or they would have done it differently, but they said some things to us that were very painful to hear, to see, to experience. Maybe, some of the core woundings are neglect, abuse, even codependency, and loss. Those 4 things are, probably the big kahunas of wounding in our childhood. So we have a wounding. We heard something that was very scary, or the energy, maybe seeing our mother shouting at our father, or vice versa, or whatever it may be. We have this wounding, and it's so scary to kind of stay in that fear, right? So what the ego does, it comes in like a crusader with its cape on and says, I will protect you from that big, bad, scary fear. So just imagine, here's the core wounding. Let's say it's neglect, right? You're a little peewee of a person, and, your mom or dad or whatever forgot to feed you lunch or something, you're starved, but you're afraid to ask for it because you're going to get yelled at if you do, whatever. Let's just say neglect, right? So core wounding, it's very painful to go there. And then the ego says, well, I'm going to protect you, so I want you to focus on something else. And what orbits around that core wounding is compulsions. It could be, now, of course, the addictions don't necessarily start when we're so young. That's a form of compulsion. But they certainly come out later, right? So maybe we're focused instead on, I'm not good enough, some maybe compulsive thoughts. I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable. Or later on, it's maybe a sex addiction or a food, sugar kind of addiction or substance. And it just keeps orbiting around that core wounding, the big kahuna of pain that the ego is trying to protect you from by having you focus on the compulsions instead. And the only way to through your pain is to face the big pain, the big wounding, I mean. So we have to move past the compulsions and move directly into the deep, dark, scary pain that the ego claims that it's protecting us from. And once we do that and we survive it, and of course we do, because in our mind it's so much worse than the actual pain. I mean, yes, it's very painful, right? There's trauma, there's all kinds of stuff going on that we've been holding on to. But there's a huge freedom in actually facing it and realizing that we all along had the strength to truly face it, and then it gets released. So in how it correlates with today's lesson is those compulsions, any form of compulsion, whether thought or behavior, addictions, whatever, those are all forms of grievances toward ourselves, toward others, towards situations, right? So the ego, it's just another way of explaining what they mean, how connected the ego is with grievances. Okay. That was, I'll probably be talking about that a little bit more as the lessons go on, because it's a pretty big and important concept. All right. May you be well. May you feel safe. And may you be at peace. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.